Hey guys, what's up? It is week 387. I have a little bit of an update. It's the day before I go to Cinema Wasteland. This won't be released till next Tuesday, the following Tuesday. So yeah, it is October what? Let's take a look at the watch. October 3rd. So tomorrow is Wasteland. It is Thursday. Got some reviews for you. So let's hop right in. The first one up is from Film Masters. And I really like what they're doing here. They've been taking kind of some movies that haven't really got as much love as they should, or movies that really haven't got much Blu-ray love in the States. And this is Creature with the Blue Hand. But this also has Web of the Spider on there. The 1971 Antonio Margheriti movie, which is essentially a remake of, I believe, his movie Castle of Blood, which was in black and white. So we got to remake it in color. So this is actually a Klaus Kinski double feature, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, that's right, Euro Kinski here. So let's start with the Creature with the Blue Hand. I mean, the Kinski roles in here are both absolutely ridiculous. So the Creature with the Blue Hand. So this is 1967. And kind of a little history lesson here. Edgar Wallace was a famous kind of thriller writer, you know, kind of in the vein of Agatha Christie, and a lot of that writer's, you know, adaptations, or where the books were made into these creamy, which are basically kind of like the predates to Giallo, right? They're these kind of, you know, German kind of thriller kind of things like that. So the creamy is before the Giallo, although this is 67, so Mario Bava had already made Blood and Black Lace, so the timelines, they cross over each other. This is 1967, and the director is Alfred, I'm going to mispronounce his name, but he's done a slew of these movies, and I've seen him before a million times. Volner, something along those lines, and his name is attached to so many of these German, you know, kind of horror thriller things that aren't really released here. Now, Creature with the Blue Hand is very gothic. Klaus Kinski plays dual roles. In the very beginning, we have a kind of a crazy Kinski escaping from a mental institution, and all these kind of people involved with the family. He has a big family. He has a twin brother, so he kind of sneaks into this family. Of course, his family's like Castle or whatever after a couple people are killed. And he switches identities with his brother. There's also kind of a police detective who's on the case who starts to wonder if everything's as it seems. There's a bunch of crooked, weird doctors and all these kind of things like that. Tons of players in here. The siblings start getting picked off. People are planted in this institution where they don't belong. And we realize that this thing goes way up to the top, and someone's hired this evil doctor to carry out all the bidding. The doctor in here, the main villainous doctor, one of them, he's got a monocle, and every time he gets shocked, he's like, oh, like the monocle comes out. It's hilarious. Perfect looking villain. He looks a lot like the Bram Stoker in the original Todd Browning Dracula. To me, that's who he has got that vibe for sure. But he's evil. He's evil. He's not like not Bram Stoker. Jeez, Van Helsing. What's wrong with me? But he's not the good Van Helsing. So yeah, this one it's very gothic. You know, the murder for money and all this kind of stuff like that. And the idea of the Creature with the Blue Hand is essentially a gauntlet. He wears like this sharp like knight gauntlet. It's awesome. And that's a great weapon. It's not gratuitous, but for 67, it's pretty far advanced. There's a really funny scene where they go and look kind of in the basement at all the kind of like mental institution patients, and it reminds you a bit of Hellraiser, right? When you go in the Hellraiser 2, when you go in the dungeon and Chenard shows all the people. This time it's a little less, it's more tame than that. But so they look in there and there's somebody who strips nude, and it's like as far as they can go. She's like strips into her like her bikini, and you're like, okay, I got it. That's pretty funny. Overall, the Creature with the Blue Hand was very entertaining. There's tons of characters and tons of double crossing and trap doors, and this is the kind of gothic stuff you expect in these movies. As far as the special features on here, they include a bonus film, The Bloody Dead, 1987 in HD. Now this is the Creature with the Blue Hand, but it has insert shot, and I watched all the inserts on there. I wasn't going to watch the whole movie again. I know that I did a shoddy job there, but I was fast forwarding. I listened to the commentary and stuff, and I was like, okay. But I was like, oh, so I'm understanding all this kind of stuff, and I go through, and they basically insert these scenes where they go into like the mental patient's room, and it's just, you know, a crazy patient. They're much more gory. They're from the 80s. They kind of are in the vein of something like Herschel Gordon Lewis, or, you know, someone in that vein, more of an 80s version of that. Gory, but it's essentially kind of the same movie and everything like that, with those gore inserts that are probably a total of 5-6 minutes or something along those lines. Besides that, we also do have a commentary with producer director Sam Sherman, and if I'm not mistaken, Sam Sherman is the guy who gave us the edited version of the version that we came to know as Raiders of the Living Dead, which is a really fun movie. New full-length commentaries for Creature with a Blue Hand by film historian Stephen Jones and Kim Newman. And Stephen Jones and Kim Newman have a great knowledge. Kim Newman is they do seem to have a lot of fun, talking about the movie and about Kinski and all these kind of things like that. But you know what? I actually enjoyed Creature with the Blue Hand. I would recommend it. Good gothic stuff, great to watch around in spooky season, as they call it. Halloween or October or whatever, fall, whatever you want to say. Okay, the next one up in this double feature is Web of the Spider, 1971, Antonio Margheriti with Klaus Kinski. Anthony Francisca, I can never say this guy's last name. He is in Death Wish 2. He's also, of course, in Tenebrae, and that's where I know him from, is Death Wish 2 and Tenebrae. Good actor. I've never seen him this young in a film. So this movie's absolutely bonkers. Edgar Allan Poe is in it, as played by Klaus Kinski, as you would expect, right? So here we go. Basically, there's this guy. A lot of Italian familiars in here. Antonio Margheriti. For some reason, I'm stuttering his name. Antonio Margheriti is just a very prolific Italian director, from Cannibal Apocalypse, Tiger Joe, Castle of Blood, which I mentioned. So tons of great movies, from gothic to war pictures. Just a great director. I have always enjoyed his output. And everyone's favorite Killer Fish, which I really enjoy as well. So this one is one of his kind of gothic films. Like I said, a remake of Castle of Blood, but in color. So Edgar Allan Poe and this other fellow are talking, and this young guy overhears. He gets involved with their conversation at kind of a bar, and they say, "Listen, we don't think that anybody could ever stay in this castle and come out alive. It's haunted." So he's like, "Bull crap." And they said, "I'll bet you $100. And he says, "I don't have that, or I'd do it." And he says, "Oh, 20 is fine." So he goes, and he's willing to risk his life staying in this castle overnight. Right when he gets there, strange things starts happening. You start seeing the paintings on the wall. And the paintings on the wall basically are the people in the castle, siblings of this so-called brother, this brother. And they start to mingle, and they definitely, the two women that come out, one has an infatuation with him, one kind of wants to keep her distance, and there's all sorts of crazy people that pop up in here. At one point, it gets really weird where this doctor comes in, and he starts telling him, he's like, "I came to this castle." He's like, "But you're dead," because he's a famous doctor. You realize everybody's dead in the castle, and it turns very much Night of the Demons. Like, the plot of this, it's a much more subdued, obviously, that one being made in 88 and being 80s cheese craziness. This one does have a similar plot. You gotta survive until dawn. You got to get out of the castle. It's almost like maybe Kevin Tenney saw this movie, but it's kind of a classic tale. You got to survive till dawn, right? And if you stay in this castle, they get you in the castle. The ghosts are like a mix of ghost vampires. Like, they suck blood, they need blood, but they also are, I feel like they are somewhat vampires. But they do have more of a ghost kind of element as well. You knew something at the ending was going to end in a similar way like it does. Like, you just had that feeling. It is a bit slow at first. It is kind of a little meandering, but the payoffs are good. The mid stuff is good. The backstory is good. You got to get the backstory of all the characters as it progresses and things like that. Overall, Web of the Spider is a pretty solid, fun, good movie to watch in October and stuff like that. We also have a commentary, of course, with Stephen Jones and Kim Newman. And we have two documentaries: Man of History, Inside the World of Edgar Wallace, and Kinski Krimis, Inside the Rialto Film Adaptations. And these are cool because they give you a little insight on the Krimis, on Edgar Wallace, all that kind of stuff. We have that big Gialli documentary, talking about the history of Gialli and all the Gialli and stuff like that. And they talk about Krimi, they brush on it, but this is a little bit more focused on that, of course. And then we have original 1967 trailer for Creature with Blue Hand, Castle of Blood, 64 original English trailer, plus a new 2024 trailer for Web of the Spider, essays in full color written by Christopher Stewartson and Nick Clark. So yeah, Garage House Pictures put out the Web of Spider, I think, and I don't know if there's any difference in cuts. I didn't get a chance to pop in my Web of Spider from Garage House Pictures, unfortunately. It's nice that these both have two discs. They're always on separate discs. So Filmmaster's doing a good job. Creature with the Blue Hand was a nice watch. Enjoyed it. And Web of Spider was also cool. Okay, the next one up is from Ronin Flicks, and it seems like they're picking up a lot of the kind of Anchor Bay back catalog from the early 2000s. A lot of that stuff didn't have great Blu-rays or didn't have a Blu-ray at all, and this one is Spiral. This is directed by Joel David Moore. I always want to say David Joel Moore. So it's Joel David Moore and Adam Green. Of course, Adam Green is famous for directing the Hatchet films and Frozen and Digging Up the Marrow and his TV show that he had and everything, Holliston. So yeah, Adam Green is a huge horror icon. Joel David Moore is also in the Hatchet films, but he has a good list of movies he's in that I think people recognize him for. Of course, the first Hatchet, but he's in Dodgeball. He's in Art School Confidential. Just a good character actor. A little underrated. I don't know if he's still. Yeah, I'm sure he's still working. Just underutilized, kind of. I think. And this is a really different role for him. This is one of these movies made in 2007. It feels very 2007 from the soundtrack choices, that kind of music and all that kind of stuff like that kind of vibe that was going on. Like, I don't want to say like Thumbsucker, Chub Scrubber, but kind of mumblecore in a lot of ways, I would say, but not necessarily. Maybe. It's hard to define that exactly when you talk in horror terms. But we kind of follow Joel David Moore. He works as a telemarketer kind of deal, and he's just very unhappy with his job. He is also, a sketcher. He likes to sketch and paint. He's a painter and all that kind of things. And he seems to be brokenhearted about a girl. And there's this kind of guy who's like a higher up that is above him, that's around his age, and they seem to have a friendship. But it seems like the one guy's always putting in the effort and kind of like at times talking down on him. Just seems like your typical kind of like frat bro kind of deal. And he's kind of an odd character, really well performed, honestly. Seems kind of genuinely like a real guy, a little obnoxious, but you don't really know how to take him. Joel David Moore is good in this. He's very kind of weird kind of guy, walks home in the rain without an umbrella kind of deal. So what happens is there's going to be some sort of blossoming love story where this girl starts working there, and she's having trouble, and she kind of makes the effort first, and they become closer and everything like that. And it's kind of digging into his secrets, into his past, a lost love possibly, and his sketchbook, and you kind of get the idea that he's not right, and you don't really know where this is going, what's real, what's not real, what happened before, all these kind of things like that. And then there's kind of a double reveal at the end of this movie that's pretty. It works pretty well. And overall, I thought that Spiral was pretty solid, nice little thriller kind of horror film, psychological thriller. Those movies where you take a kind of a broken character and study them. I've always kind of enjoyed those. I prefer the ones from the 70s, like Pigs or something like that, or Dream No Evil, or there's tons of these movies like Killer of Dolls. I feel like those movies are all fantastic, kind of focusing on these characters that are just broken and possibly dangerous. Even Mosquito the Rapist. All these movies kind of focus on that kind of shit like that, and I love those kind of movies. I think when we get to earlier 2000s, we have stuff like May, which is good, and this isn't as good as May or anything like that, but it's worth checking out. I think it's good. I think the performances are good. Overall, the filmmaking is good, and I know Adam Green always talked about, he always got pigeonholed into the Hatchet movies, but he made Frozen and Digging Up the Marrow, and they're further from Hatchet and stuff like that, so he's a little bit more versatile than he gets credit for. And seeing Joel David Moore step up and co-direct this, he does a pretty good job. They did a pretty solid job. Not my personal favorite type of horror movie from this time period in the early 2000s. Like I said, I love the ones from the 70s. These ones, they're hit and miss. This one I think is more hit than miss. I think it's pretty good. As far as the special features, there's a bunch of them, and it's also looks much better than the old editions that Anchor Bay would put out on DVD and Blu-ray. Those like they put out The Lost and stuff, and Ronin Flicks picked that up and put it out, and they just gave it the royal treatment as The Lost deserves. So we have Paint It Red, Making Spiral. We have new film restoration completed by Ronin Flicks. Paint It Red, Making Spiral, new behind-the-scenes documentary featuring new interviews with Adam Green, Joel David Moore, Zachary Levy, Will Barnett, and Corey Livingston. New audio commentaries, co-directors Green and Moore, director of photography Will Barrett, and editor Corey Livingston. Archival audio commentary with the co-directors and Jeremy Boring, DP, all that kind of stuff like that. And we also have Amber Tamblyn on that one. So overall, this is a pretty solid, cool movie. PG-13 too. I wouldn't have guessed that. I didn't really know. It doesn't seem like a kid's movie or anything or childish. It's just not super explicit, but still good. Okay, the next one up is from Synapse Films, and this is funny because I'm reviewing a movie or talking about a movie from around Halloween, around spooky season, and it's fucking a Christmas movie. This is Infinite Santa 8000, and this is from 2013, and I did not hear about this movie. Now, this kind of animation, I don't even want to call it, it's not necessarily, is it flash animation or something like that? It's a special kind of very computer-oriented animation. It's not as rough as something like City of Rot, or those movies that came out probably in the early 2000s. It's a little bit better than that. So what we have here is a post-apocalyptic world with Santa Claus, and it's funny because he's part like cyborg robot robot kind of Santa Claus deal, maybe possibly created completely in a lab. We're not 100% sure, but we kind of get a gist of it later on, where Santa's maybe just been rebuilt from his body. It's funny, there's so many robotic Santa Claus things. There's the Futurama Santa Claus, and then we also have Christmas Bloody Christmas. We have a robot Santa going berserk. This time the Santa is fucking good. Thank God. Thank you, Saint Nick. We needed that. But, so essentially St. Nick is in this bloody tournament in the very beginning, and he fights this big monster, and the voiceover, the voice acting, good stuff, and the animation, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to like this. There's more one-liners than I can shake a stick at within the first minute, and I'm like, okay, I don't know. I just wasn't really into it, and as it progressed, I started to get into the movie a little bit more. He has a friend that he lives with, Martha, and she's just like android, and they just have this very innocent, sweet life as they can in the apocalypse, although everybody is a cannibal, and they'll eat anything that they catch or kill or anything like that. But Santa tries to remain good. He has his reindeer Randolph and his other reindeer and stuff like that, and he tries his best. But he can't really get away from this evil doctor that's trying to plant the wasteland with all these kind of mutant creatures that he's bioengineering in the lab and everything like that. So that's the villain here. In the very beginning, an evil Easter bunny is sent after him, and that's kind of a fun scene. And we realize that Martha has a history with this evil doctor, and he does as well, and all these kind of things like that. There's a giant evil bunny and a lot of fight scenes and everything like that. But at the end, it's a big epic showdown. At times you think Santa's down. Is he out? Who knows? I mean, this is the kind of movie that could go dark very easily and not go back. But Infinite Santa 8000, it's worth watching, especially if you like different styles of animation. I'm okay with it. I like it. I don't love it. I think it's kind of fun to have the post-apocalyptic Santa Claus Christmas kind of thing. I know there was one that, who put that out? I can't remember. White Doomsday was one that came out that was kind of a Christmas and post-apocalyptic movie and whatnot. And there's been some where it takes place on New Year's and everything like that. But as far as the special features are included, we have feature audio commentary with creators Greg Anson and Michael Neel, the complete original 13-part web series, including optional audio commentary, multiple interview featurettes with cast and crew, original promotional trailer, and 2 music videos. So the web series is like 30 minutes as well, and that was the original one, I think, that probably got the complete that got this series made. And it seems very similar to this. The animation's a little bit different, but yeah, overall I think Infinite Santa Claus 8000 is worth watching if you're an enthusiast of animation or bizarre animation. I think the villain is actually pretty good, and there is a little bit of heartwarming Christmas shit going on in here if that's your style. Boy, oh boy, here we go. This is from Unearthed Classics, one of my favorite lines, because they always put out great movies or weird movies or movies that are kind of forgotten, and this is Village of Doom from 1983. Yeah, good stuff here. Now, this movie I'd heard about in passing, saw the title, read a little bit about it. This is based on a true story. So you're thinking, oh shit, the Unearthed Classics, what are they going to put out? Because Unearthed specializes in some pretty crazy movies like Serbian Film or August Underground. They put those movies out. Or, of course, they used to put out Marian Dora's movies, Cannibal at least, for the early on. And so they had a reputation to put out some pretty wild movies. The Unearthed Classic line has had cool stuff like Unnameable, Untold Story, all sorts of stuff like that. There's Clemency of Snakes, so good stuff. So Village of Doom, I was very excited to see that they were putting this out. Like I said, 83, based on a true story that took place in 1938 in a small Japanese village where this kind of isolated person that was a loner kind of character murdered like 30 people in his village. So this movie's pretty wild. The soundtrack is bizarre. It almost has like a fantastical feel, but I can understand that in like the mind of these kind of people that mass shooters or anything like that. They live in fantasy worlds, right? They don't live in the real world. They don't think like regular people. So the music, it fits his kind of character in this weird kind of way. But so the real life story is a little bit different from the movie version, of course. So all he wants to do, he's gifted intelligently. His parents are dead. He lives with his grandma, and his cousin has a thing for him. This young girl, they're around the same age, but he likes her back somewhat in a certain way. But he is kind of stuck because he has tuberculosis, and his parents died of it. In real life, he had a different, lung ailment, and he couldn't fight in the military. And in the very beginning, we kind of see that the Japanese Empire, of course, is very, very proud of their military and all that kind of deal like that, so he can't go. in a lot of ways he feels obsolete. And as he pushes and as he sexual relationships with a lot of married women, he kind of makes himself even more of an outcast in a small village. And things get more awkward and weird, and he starts to, shoot guns all the time. And he's just becoming more and more isolated, more and more strange, more and more sick, and he feels more and more useless. There is a lot of sex scenes where he does have sex with these women and things like that. And the movie's kind of a build-up. It's coming. It's going to happen. The village looks excellent. It's very cool. I bet it's very realistic of what it looked like in the time. Just this kind of really cool village on the inside, very rural and stuff like that. So he cuts the power lines, and one of the very unique things about him is, if you can see the cover there, he has these lights. He makes this weird helmet, which I believe he did in real life as well, something like this, these lights, and they're around his head. So he goes with a shotgun. In the real life, I think he had a rifle, and he just systematically kills anyone he believes that wronged him in this town. And the list is very long. There's a group of people that, kind of do their own kind of justice in this kind of rural town, and a lot of those people are on the list. People that turned him away are on the list, and of course he's going to start with his family. It's very similar to the Charles Whitman kind of thing. So it's really crazy to see these old kind of stories of mass shooters and mass killers like that. It's always been around. It's just not been as prevalent, obviously. And I don't want to get into why that is or anything like that. There's multiple reasons, or who knows, maybe, all sorts of crazy things like that. But Village of Doom, man, the lead performance is very good. The acting is very strong. Everyone in here is great. They're well, they're actors, the real actors. It's not an amateur movie. This is not amateur hour. Very well directed, very well shot. Cinematography's great. It's actually just overall a very great movie, like very well made movie. Now the subject matter may bother a lot of people. It's not the easiest thing to watch, but I really think it's great. I think it's a great movie. It does feel long. It's an hour and 45 minutes, but it's kind of, dare I say, an epic kind of movie like that. As far as the special features are concerned, we have audio commentary by Asian film experts Army Avenema and Mike Lader, who do all the Hong Kong, and they do tons of stuff for Eureka and 88 Films, Dark Asia with Megan, Case 57, Japan's Darkest Night, to Sumato Massacre, and that's some YouTuber who really focuses on real life Asian crime and stuff like that, Japan, and does a really good job with that stuff. So that's a nice little kind of, crash course with learning about this subject, which, I think I'd heard about it slightly, but just 15 minutes, and you're like, okay, I know a lot more than I did before. Helps with context of the film. And the commentary starts diving into differences and stuff like that. And these people, they know quite a bit about Asian cinema. I've always know more about their Hong Kong kind of, commentaries and everything like that. But great release, very cool. I think that this is going to be a good discovery for a lot of people. It's not overly, it's very violent, but it's not very gory, if that makes sense. There's a lot of shots and shotgun shots, people getting shot. There's a head explosion, a katana is used, a knife. So it is bothersome, but I wouldn't call it an all-out, like super gory film, just a very violent one. But Village of Doom, good stuff. All right, since I'm going to Cinema Wasteland and Rick Salone's going to be there, and I've seen his movie Mind, Body, and Soul, I was like, you know what? This is a confession. Mrparka Confessions. So, yeah. I love ghoulies. I love gremlins. I love my critters. But, for some reason, I've made crappy gremlins ripoffs, or minor ghoulies ripoffs, right? But I never saw Hobgoblins. I have never watched Hobgoblins from, 88? I think this is 88. Never watched it. I've always heard terrible things about the movie, and I'm like, but Dave, you love little creature movies. You should have watched Hobgoblins. And I did. So I righted that wrong, and I popped in Hobgoblins, directed by Rick Salone. Who pops up in here? I know there's one big actor that I'm going to completely forget. Dwayne Whitaker is in here, which is funny. So essentially what we have here is, this is ridiculous. I guess a spacecraft or meteor or some shit crashed years ago at this movie, it's like they preserve film. So they hide film there in Hollywood or whatever and have it in the vault and whatnot. So this old janitor kind of hides the Hobgoblins and watches them and makes sure they don't get out, right? So what happens is he's training a new security guard, and the new security guard kind of fucks up when somebody breaks in or something, and the Hobgoblins get out. Now the Hobgoblins, you think, are just going to run amok and kind of do the whole Gremlins thing and, cause crazy chaos around town. Yes, but the Hobgoblins are very similar to the Imp in Sorority Babes and the Slime Bowl-orama. So, in that movie they could grant wishes. He's a little genie kind of Imp guy, right? It's awesome. But this time they basically can play into your fantasies and like weird kind of things on you, so you don't really know reality from fiction. So that's kind of what happens. Is we have a group of friends, of course, and one guy's a big army guy. We have some goofy friends. There's a long scene where they're kind of goofing around with like rakes fighting. It's not great, but so there's a beautiful shot though of like the hobgoblins watching them outside, and you see through the windows, and it's very 80s. And this movie is so 80s over the top that if you were to pop this in now, and I told you it came out in 2020 and it was an 80s kind of back homage, like, oh yeah, it's one of those, you're like, yeah, I can see they're just overdoing the 80s, like, hey, it's the 80s. So this is super fucking 80s. It really feels 80s. But the big chunk of the movie takes place in like a strip joint or a bar where Dwayne Whitaker's there and he's the doorman. And what happens is, of course, the hobgoblins get in there, and we have like, this movie, it feels like it's just 3 set pieces, the entire thing. We have the old movie like place where they preserve the film, and then we have the bar, and like then we have the house, and each scene is like 30 minutes, and that's that. So like it's not particularly gory. There's not that many special effects. The hobgoblins don't really move very well, but they are really cool looking and enjoyable. Overall, I appreciate Hobgoblins. I don't love this movie. It's not great, but how can I hate something that is a fellow Gremlins ripoff that probably has tons of more money? It's shot on film, and it's just better made. Even though it's probably more boring. But, I do enjoy it. And I did remember feeling similar to Mind, Body, Soul. It has like a certain goofiness to it. But overall, Hobgoblins, it's not a great movie, but it does have a certain amount of ambition. There's a lot of explosions in the bar, so you got to give it for that. Just probably needed a little bit more money. They originally wanted to get John Carradine in this bad boy if you watch the special features, but he didn't think that John Carradine could run, but the old guy they got can't run either. It was like watching Joe Biden or somebody like that. It was pretty rough. He was just like, and I was like, holy shit, dude, this old guy running down the aisles and everything. It was funny. But for the most, I'm laughing at some old guy's misery. It's like, he can't even walk. That's hilarious. I feel like an asshole. But the special features, scanned and restored in 2K from 35mm original camera negative, archival commentary track with director Rick Sloan. Hobgoblins Revisited, brand new making of featurette, brand new interview with Hobgoblin creature fabricator Kenneth J. Hall. Hobgoblins, the making of Disaster Piece featurette. Hobgoblins Invade Comic-Con featurette, trailer, reversible cover art, English subtitles. Yeah, that's right. So this movie is nonsense. It's ridiculous. It's for little creature completist only. But yeah, Vinegar Syndrome did a good job cleaning this up. Okay, we're going to talk about some 2024 movies. First up, The Substance, right? I'm going to talk a little bit about it, try not to spoil it, then do some spoilers. So, this is directed by the woman who did Revenge a few years back. Really cool movie, very brightly lit, very visually stunning, cool-ass movie, right? So, The Substance. Everybody's telling me it's the best movie ever. And I was like, okay, so I got to see this one. I squeezed in last Saturday at the last showing. It's like 10 o'clock. It's like a 2-hour and 20-minute movie. You get 25 minutes of trailers. I'm like, I'm going to fall asleep. My old ass is going to doze off, and just like, eh. And I was like, okay. So I go in there right away. Within the first 5 minutes, I'm chuckling to myself. This dark humor is throughout it, the satire. I'm like, yes, I love this. I love this so much. So overall, basically, it follows Debbie Moore, who's an aging actress. She was won an Academy Award, but she's kind of washed up now, and now she does like a kind of jazzerthon, like exercise show when she's in her 50s. And, Dennis Quaid is kind of like an executive, and he wants her out. So he pushes her out, and she's hearing about this new kind of drug, the substance, that's supposed to, kind of give you fresh life and do all these kind of crazy things. The instructions are wild and weird. She does it, and what we have is complete weird body horror. We have kind of the picture of Dorian Gray. We have a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde kind of story. We have a Rejuvenatrix kind of story, if anybody's seen that one. Kind of the serum looks very much like Reanimator. So we have all these kind of weird mixtures of horror films going on. We have also a satire on Hollywood. We have the horrors of aging, the unfair treatment towards women aging. We have hilarious kind of like the difference in between somebody trying to sell sex and somebody just being like all that kind of stuff. There's so much cool stuff. We see these old guys that are just completely creepy, and it's over the top on purpose. There's like a certain sense of parody and satire to it. It's fucking brilliant. It's absolutely hilarious. The special effects are amazing. They do all this weird shit. I can't believe who paid for this or why they'd pay for this, but I'm glad they did, and I hope it's a fucking hit because I want more weird shit. There's some crazy like Tsukamoto shit going on in there, and some Frank Henenlotter possibly, and all sorts of weird shit. Amazing movie. I love it. But we'll get into spoilers. So be warned. So the substance, of course, Debbie Moore does fantastic in this movie, and she gets the substance because she's aging out. And what it does is it creates. What happens is you shed out a younger, best version of yourself, and you got to switch back and forth while the other one is sleeping for 7 days and they get medicine. So what happens is the young person has no response. They don't really have the responsibility, right? And they're moving up the Hollywood ladder. Well, but if you don't exchange quick enough, obviously there's a price to pay, right? And it starts to get really crazy. You start to see kind of people's coping mechanisms with getting older in a weird fucked up way, with like eating a lot and all these kind of things. And what happens is the characters do things that they shouldn't absolutely do, and we get some of the wildest kind of hilarious, dark, gross shit ever. It's kind of divided into chapters, right? We have like Elizabeth, we have Sue, and then we have like Monster Elizabeth Sue. And right when that popped up, you're like, holy shit, they're not going there. It's completely brilliant that the movie opens up with, you know, the star on the, you know, the Hollywood walk, and everything like that. And we see it, and then, you know, people are walking over it, dropping their ketchup on it. You know, this person has become a crack star, the faded star, and everything like that. And then by the end of it, of course, you know, they crawl back to that spot to die, because that's where they, you know, where they feel like they belong, or looking at the stars while they're dying on a star and melting into the fucking ground, and how it just eats you up. It's so fucking awesome. Love this movie. I don't think it's going to be topped, honestly. I'm trying to watch a bunch of 2024 movies. I realize I'm going to probably do a list. So I'm trying to squeeze them in. You know, maybe I'll get 60, maybe I'll get 100, who the fuck knows. I'm also going to be going back and forth between the 82 movies, and I'm slowing down a little bit on the 82 movies because I've hit a lot of the big ones, and I got to squeeze in these extra kind of shows that I'm going to do big, like, reviews with people and stuff like that. So, you know, The Substance, I absolutely loved it. Debbie Moore's great. Everybody in here's great. Dennis Quaid's a fucking creep. Highly recommended. I love these kind of stories too, these mad scientist kind of stories gone wrong, especially when they're satire. It's like Starry Eyes. It's like all these kind of other movies, but it just blends them all perfectly into, you know, a grotesque, satirical, bitter, hilarious milkshake that I want more of. Okay, the next one up is In a Violent Nature, and I heard a lot about this film as well, and everybody's like, it's an art slasher by the point of view of the slasher. I was like, okay, and a lot of mixed reviews, and this is going to divide the audience. Let me say this, I don't think it's a perfect movie. Do I find it incredibly interesting? Yes. Do I like it? Yes. Do I think it's perfect for a lot of people? No. A lot of people are going to hate this, and that's understandable. I really like this after I sat and thought about it. At the first point, I was like, okay. So, you know, it's a well-shot movie. I think it's a 4:3, which is crazy to me because I'm sitting there watching and I'm like, you got this beautiful scenery, it's shot beautifully, but it's in 4:3, and that's like, they probably did that on purpose, right? Because, you know, they had to have. No one does that on accident, right? You'd be a fucking moron to do that on accident. But maybe just because all the slashers they watched, you know, were on VHS, and they were all in 4:3 at the time, even though they were probably all shot in widescreen. Everything's shot in widescreen, right? So essentially what we have here in the very beginning, we just have these two kind of characters. Somebody is walking through the woods, and you kind of hear it. It's kind of stationary shot, right? And these people arguing, yada yada yada. And somebody takes this, like, this watch thing, this necklace on, and right, we sit there on it, and we wait, and of course this character rises, and he's kind of a Jason Voorhees, right? He rises from there, and they took something that belongs to him. So he's on a warpath. He immediately just starts walking through these woods, trudging along, and that's going to be a theme in here. A lot of fucking walking. So if you don't like walking in nature and nice, beautiful shots, then you probably won't like this if you want the story to continue. So he's after this necklace, this emblem or whatever, and everybody he comes across with, he destroys. You get a little bit of backstory right away when you realize he's looking to grab this necklace, and you realize that his father did something. We also have the classic campfire tale from The Burning or Friday the 13th Part 2 or Madman, right? Or Hell Night, when they're walking, telling the whole exposition story of who this possible character is, this whole My Bloody Valentine, right? Where Harry Warden came back and killed. We have this whole speech about it, you know, and that's, you're going to have to assume that it's real. The story's not great, but we kind of explain why the character wears a mask and stuff, and it's kind of fun. What's so cool about this movie is because you really feel that this was a different point of view that just followed the kids. You'd be like, it's kind of dull because the characters aren't necessarily amazing. They're fine. They're not amazing. They're fine. They fit the mold of what they should be in those movies. Kind of bland, just fine, okay. Sometimes they say funny shit. Sometimes they're worthy. They're decent characters for a slasher movie. They're all right. And you wonder if you follow them, pretty much that this would be your standard slasher film, right? But instead, taking the standard slasher formula and just following a different character and shooting it different, it makes it an art film. And I find that so interesting, right? Just, it's not necessarily even your story ever. It's how it's filmed and whose point of view it is and all these kind of things like that, and where you choose to stay on the camera, let's linger, and all this kind of other shit like that. There's diegetic music, but there's not really a score either. Of course, there's some really gnarly kills that they definitely pushed forward to the point where they're so ridiculous at times that you're just like, okay. The yoga kill is, I think, the one that people are going to be like, holy shit. And it's bonkers and crazy and a little too goofy, but very interesting and crazy to watch. And there's also a scene where a character's decapitated, and it lasts on there a long time to the point where you almost feel like you're in a drug haze, and you're just like, is this still going on? And I know I'm spoiling this, so I'll continue to spoil it. In the end of the movie, they play kind of a trick on you, right? After the character, spoiler, has received his little emblem. So the threat's gone, but you're still following that point of view. But you never truly follow the point of view in the movie. You're kind of following behind the killer or seeing him lumbering. This time, it's true point of view. And you're like, oh shit, the killer's coming from them. Then you register, it's never really been in that point of view, has it? Maybe it has, maybe it hasn't. But the time it actually does point of view, like Michael Myers or, that kind of view or whatever you do in like the old Gialli, it's actually not him, as it shouldn't be, because we never really saw that before, but it's a great fuck with you kind of moment. So we think that the killer's coming after her, but it's not. And then we have this long, amazing kind of exposition dump of a character talking while they're in the car, who's actually a character from Friday the 13th Part 2 and Girls Night Out, kind of returning. She's a kind of scream queen kind of girl. She has this great, she's an older woman now, she has this great kind of scene where they're sitting in this car and there's just so much anticipation going on as she's talking. You said, my brother or something like that got attacked him, but it's just like animals just, and everyone asks, why? There is no why, right? And she kind of goes to this whole big exposition thing, and that's the point what made me like this movie. I was sitting there thinking, I was like, okay, that was fine, it was good, it felt like more of a slasher than a lot of the slashers I've seen, but different point of view. And then that end scene where they kind of just break it down and have that long shot of her talking and everything like that, and I was like, you know what? It kind of just snapped in my head, and it came to, and I was like, I like this. I know people are like, I don't care for the characters. It's not about the characters. It's really not, unfortunately. The only people that you really needed to be strong performances in here are the main girl. She needs to be pretty solid, and the actress at the end who gives the long speech. As far as I'm concerned, those are the big roles that I would think those have to be performed really well or well enough. And the killer. And I think those three do a pretty solid job. Everyone else is fine. There's no, where you're like, oh, that's horrible, But they're not the focus. The focus is taking a very typical, script and turning it on, taking these filmmaking techniques and this kind of approach to it so differently that you're like, holy shit, that's so weird that you can take such, for critics typical from the 80s, and say a pile of shit script, dime a dozen, and make it kind of an art film. It's almost like hey, I can do that, right? Fuck it. Oh, you think they're shitty? I'll show you. No, it's crazy. It's really weird, and I thought it was pretty cool in that way, in a violent nature. Good stuff. Okay, the next one here is from 2024, and this is Strange Darling. Now, this is another movie that kind of had the reputation of, hey, flipping everything on its head. And this one, I had heard that it was kind of a flipping on its head kind of deal. But about halfway through, I was like, oh, is he going to do this? And I think I picked something a little bit more interesting than what the movie did. And it actually was very kind of a typical twist. But the way they do it's cool. And overall, Strange Darling is another movie that's basically your kind of cat and mouse serial killer chase movie that films it in such a beautiful way, shot in 35mm. They sure let you know, which is good for me. I don't care. Hey, if you want to shove it in my face that you shot in 35mm, as long as it's shot on 35mm, I don't care. I'll eat some of it if you want. But it's pretty cool that movies are getting shot on film still. So it just pops with the colors, with the filmmaking techniques, and again, it's kind of in an art film kind of way. Kyle Gallner's in here. There's some other, Ed Begley Jr. or Barbara Hershey. I can't think of the lead actress's name, and she's fucking fantastic. She also, similar to In a Violent Nature, has a long car scene at the very end where she does a really good job. Very good performance on her part. I think she's very good. I think that some of the dialogue is very good. Kyle Gallner, great actor, man. I recently rewatched Red State, and you're like, man, he's great in that movie. He's the best part of that fucking movie, besides like Goodman and Michael Parks. He's a great actor. There's so many good people in that, but he's a great part of that movie. And watching him and pop up and smile and shit, like he's having a renaissance, but he's never went away. I guess I just didn't know where the fuck he went between that, and he does a good job. So we're looking at this movie, Strange Darling, and again, it is kind of this story broken down to 6 chapters, and as it goes on, you realize it's not as it seems, but they keep you kind of thinking one thing or watching something until it pushes a little bit further. overall, I like this movie. I think it's well shot. I think it's well acted. I think it's well directed. I think the use of Love Hurts, I love it. I love it. I love that song used in movies. Hell, I really like it when it's used in Rob Zombie's Halloween, and people are going to get mad. It's like that little kid just sitting there like crying on the... I don't know. I'm sorry. I like that stuff. But I think they use it pretty well in here, in the film. And, I think that the ending is satisfying. They could have just done the whole kind of open-ended kind of shit, but I think the way they handle it, it's actually better than just doing the open-ended stuff, because that's become such a, has the super dark ending become a cop-out at this point as well? Who knows? Like when you watch endings like Red State or No Country for Old Men, where it just kind of leaves you like, I'm not saying it's as good as that, but, it's kind of like, that open kind of weird ending kind of deal. And this one I think is just kind of, it's not comparable to those endings, but those endings are just kind of, there's not really closure. This one is, I guess, more closure-esque, but still kind of just a non-typical ending in this kind of way, I guess you could say. If the character got away, I think it would just be kind of bland. Like, we're doing this shit again, leave it. But it's just different because you think that character might, but then they don't, and then you're like, yeah, that's right, that's the right call. And the way they play with the characters' names, I think, is good too, because that leaves you guessing a little bit longer. Overall, a lot of this movie takes place in a deep conversation between them, and that stuff is very intriguing. You got two really good actors, and it's lit really well. You kind of feel that whole drunken bar haze, hey, it's a late night, I'm not going to feel great tomorrow, but let's live for the night kind of deal. It's also like a road movie. There's a lot of traveling at certain points. But overall, I think this is a good movie. Strange Darling, I would recommend it. I like it. I think rewatching it could move up. Could be a top 10 for sure. But, it has thriller aspects for sure. Maybe a little bit thriller before horror, but I do think it has horror aspects too. Good movie, Strange Darling. All right, guys, let's hop into those 1982 movies.
I know I'm human. If you were all these things, then you just attack me right now. So some of you are still human. This thing doesn't want to show itself. It wants to hide inside an imitation. It'll fight if it has to. But it's vulnerable out in the open. If it takes us over, then it has no more enemies. Nobody left to kill it. And then it's won.
You son of a bitch, you moved the cemetery, but you left the bodies, didn't you? You son of a bitch, you left the bodies and you only moved the headstones! You only moved the headstones! Why? Why?
For a girl like you to come into my life, I've been waiting for a girl like you, who love and will survive. I've been waiting for someone new to make me feel alive. Yeah, waiting for a girl like you to come into my life.
You bitch! You called me a bitch!
What's in the basket?
stop it. There's no more time. You've got to... Please, stop it. Stop it now. Turn it off. Turn it off. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it.
Okay, the first one up is Woman of Fire from 1982. It's called Woman of Fire 82. Now, this is a South Korean movie, and this director originally made this movie in 1971. I've not seen the 71 version. I think the 71 version is probably held to a higher regard, but a lot of the South Korean horror films from the late 70s, early 80s and stuff are really top-notch. They don't have wide releases, a lot of them, but they are starting to get more out there. So this one opens up, and it's kind of like these detectives looking over, and these two people have been killed, and the wife and is out in the chicken, kind of giant chicken coop. They kind of have like a big kind of giant farm where they farm eggs and all that kind of stuff like that. And she's out there and says that somebody broke in and killed her husband and the housemaid or whatnot. So they're like, okay. And the cops are looking over and say, no fucking way. They're making jokes. They're being coarse. Like, these people were poisoned. So it goes on. And then we're like, so how the fuck is this going to work? And I'm realizing that that's a big thing in these South Korean movies. So what's the one Suddenly in the Dark where the guy has a new housemaid that comes in and the wife doesn't trust her and there's some kind of affair possibly and all that kind of shit like that. There's also Wolf Hour from 1981 where definitely that character, it doesn't trust the house. That's just such a common trope, especially in Asian cinema, right? It's like, well, we got this nanny, and possibly going to steal the husband away, and it's been done a million times in different movies. So this is that kind of storyline, right? So the husband is an artist. He's a musical artist. That's how he makes his money. But the wife kind of does all like the physical labor. She runs the farm. They have 2 kids, a son and daughter. And what happens is this kind of rural girl comes in and she says, will you help me find a husband? I'll work for you guys for free and do all this kind of things like that. And she follows around the wife like a stray dog. The kid calls her a stray dog, says she smells. She has very typical, she's on typical ways of doing things. She's from a different place. She'll kill the rat and pick it up without being afraid. She doesn't really cook the same kind of food. She makes these weird kind of alcohols and stuff like that. So the husband has not been he's not been faithful in the past. He definitely has this shaky kind of unfaithful kind of history and everything like that. He's not a great guy. He's not a super likable guy. But as it progresses, the story gets more complicated. And the wife says, "Hey, listen, I'm going out of town for some things," and he's having one of her musical artists there. I don't trust her. If anything starts to happen, get her the fuck out of there. What ends up happening is, in a drunken stupor, he thinks he's going to sleep with this musical artist, but he's drunk because she got him drunk, the nanny, to avoid this from happening, but he rapes her. And this woman believes that she needs this husband now. She wants the husband and all these kind of things like this. And she wants everything that this wife has, kind of a switch and all this kind of shit. And she essentially just starts making her life and his life a living hell. People end up dead. It ends up a big tragedy. And I don't want to spoil everything, but it's a really good, well-acted movie. There's a lot of good performances. Basically the 3 leads and the 2 kids, they all do a tremendous job. It's dark, it's sad, and it's not exactly how the opening, told you what it was. You assume that, but it's not exactly what happened here. And there's points in this movie where you're just like, oh my god, I would want to run away. I just would leave. I would just run away and forget everything. But you can't because your whole life is in this place. And oh man, just being unfaithful sometimes, most of the time, maybe all the time, really not fucking worth it. Really not worth it, especially in Korean movies. But yeah, Woman of Fire, I really want to check out the 1971 version. I think this director did like 3 of these movies in kind of a trilogy, maybe a loose trilogy that all kind of vibe with that kind of deal. But yeah, great movie actually. Okay, the next one is from 82 as well, of course, and this is The Living Koheiji, I believe is how you would say it, which is probably completely wrong. And this was originally, there was one from 1957, and this totally feels like a classic Japanese ghost story, right? Like the one where the 2 guys kill somebody at the same time and they have to keep this deep dark secret. And that one has been done numerous times, and this one has been done a couple times as well. So what we have here is an actor, and we have a playwright and his wife, and the actor is madly in love with this playwright's wife, and they're best friends. So he keeps telling this wife, she's mistreated a lot by the husband. The husband is violent, he's angry, he beats her, he will not let her go no matter what. And the actor keeps telling her, listen, I'll kill him if you run away with me. And the wife keeps leading him on and says, hey, he'll never let me go. He'll never let me go. Almost as if she's trying to press them. But she's actually in the worst position because she sees two awful men basically eventually fighting for her throughout. And as it progresses, there's this weird kind of point, right, where it kind of escalates to where the playwright finds out that his best friend wants his wife. And there's this scene. I'm just going to spoil this, okay, because it's very hard to talk about without. So he talks to me, he's like, I plan on killing you for your wife. And the guy beats him off the fucking boat and assumes he's dead. But of course he comes back covered in seaweed. So you're like, is this a horror aspect or what's going on? As it progresses, we see this character, the living Koheiji, I think it's like the name or something. I think it stands for something immortal, possibly, in that kind of aspect. And we see him die maybe a couple times and come back. But it all kind of ends at the, escalates at the very, very end of the film, where in a kind of a Revenant way, where these two are like fighting in a creek, but instead of focusing on them, it kind of just focuses on this one point. We see them in the frame and they kind of move off, and we're kind of just focusing on this shot of the wife and everything like that. You're like, that's such an art shot, right? Such an art thing to do. And then we'll kind of come back to that, right? A lot of people are always upset when like you don't see the climactic moment or something because the camera would rather focus on something else. A lot of people consider that artsy. A lot of people consider that a cop-out, whatever you consider, right? Budgetary constraints. It's all probably a mixture of all different things like that. But I thought this was a good film, well acted, interesting story. And it's basically just character driven. There's a lot of locations and moving and things like that. And this character is just completely horrible, the husband, and all of them don't seem like great people, honestly. And it's just really hard to get away from somebody in certain places and certain cultures and certain times. But yeah, great film as well, Japanese one. So check it out, The Living Koheiji. Somebody help me with that, please. I should have looked it up and learned it a little bit better. But yeah. Okay, the Patreon pick here is, I think Jim Simon picked this possibly, and this is Vinegar Syndrome movie, and this is Buddies. And this is by a director named Arthur J. Brezin Jr., and he actually died 2 years after this movie was made, and I believe one of the lead actors also died. They both died of HIV, from my understanding. I learned this from the interview with the lead actor in here. There's basically two lead actors. Buddies is in 1985. It's like the first AIDS movie. AIDS kind of movie about AIDS and people dying of it and all that kind of stuff. It's so weird, like, you'll watch early 90s movies, like, and, like, Hong Kong movies, like Fatal Termination and shit, and like AIDS is in those movies, and it's like Troma's War. It's like used as a fucking joke a lot of times. You're like, that's so fucked up in the 80s to do that, but hey, it's just the way movies were, crazy shit like that, right? There's also Love Minus Zero Equal Infinity, where AIDS is not used as a joke in that movie, the Hisayasu Sato movie. But Buddies, so here we go. We have a lot of like narration and stuff by the lead actor. This movie was made very rushed. It was rushed, but it's really well done, really well acted, really poignant. We have two homosexual characters that are complete polar opposites in a lot of ways. One character doesn't believe that, there should be a gay parade. It's fine for them, but it's not his thing. It doesn't need to advertise. He doesn't need to isolate himself away from, society and be, I'm gay, I'm different, I need to stand out. And the other character, doesn't believe that. And, these are still arguments that a lot of people have today. A lot of people feel that there should be a lot of pride in things and stuff like that, and it's not that I feel like I'm better or anything like that, or it's just that they've overcame a lot and they feel like they should be celebrated, that kind of thing like that, and they have this kind of argument. But essentially what happens is this character, he is like he formats books and stuff like that, and articles and things like that, and he's making a book about HIV and AIDS, all these different point of views and all these kind of things like that. This is early in like the outbreak when a lot of people are dying, and the credits they have a list of people that died on each day of HIV and AIDS, and this is New York, so it's really been hit hard. And he's making this book about these different outlooks and all stuff like that by people. So he wants to volunteer for the Buddy program. The Buddy program is essentially you kind of sit in with somebody who's dying of AIDS and HIV, or AIDS. I'm just going to call it AIDS now because HIV is and it turns into AIDS, of course. So he's wants to volunteer to kind of learn more about it himself and help out and all these kind of things like that. And he gets this guy who's the opposite. He was, more promiscuous than him, more, kind of political than him. And at first they butt heads. He's not sure if he likes the guy. He realizes he's intelligent. And at times he starts to kind of fantasize about him in his real life with his partner and all these kind of things like that. And of course he develops a very strong relationship with this person and a friendship and a loving relationship. You know what I mean? And of course, as it it progresses, you know where this is going. And they bring up a lot of questions about, different homosexuals not all being the same kind of person, and how people are treated, and all these kind of things like that, and his history and his past. And they humanize this guy. They make him point out the loves of his life, the people that loved him, and all this kind of stuff. And it becomes very sad, very depressing, and everything. And the other characters putting himself in the positions of his past lovers, and things like that, to kind of feel like he could have been this guy's partner, or he could be the guy in the bed, in different aspects and different outlooks in life. One character comes from a very loving family that accepted him. One comes from a family that kicked him out. So it changes your perspective on things, a lot of ways, a lot of different things. So people come from different walks of life, even if they share this one quality about them, and at the end of the movie, I'm going to spoil it, of course. You know where this is going. The character, he shows up to see him, and he's just gone. He never got a call. The bed's empty, and I feel like you hear like older gay people talk about people, that lived through the '80s and stuff like that, and experienced this stuff, and they talk about, well, all these people were here, and then they were just gone, just disappeared. Like nobody talked about them. They're just no longer in our lives, no longer on this existence, just disappeared completely, like a whole generation of people. And it's just, he comes in, the bed's gone, no goodbyes, no anything like that, and it's pretty depressing, pretty heartfelt, pretty, you feel for the characters, and you feel for this, and it's a movie that I think is important to watch, because like anybody that didn't grow up in the 80s or the 90s, like when I was a kid, AIDS was scary because I was born in '86, but you always have the stigma of, I don't want to step on a needle or catch or use drugs, all that kind of stuff like that, right? But it wasn't like this where people were just dying left and right all the time. There wasn't a medicine or anything like that, or anything to help, and the government didn't really seem to give a fuck. But yeah, it's just a depressing, well-made movie, very quickly made, though, at the same time, that is just a slice of life from New York, and a slice, a time that is forgotten by many that probably shouldn't be, right? If you forget your history, you are doomed to repeat it, as the opening of the Cannibal Holocaust Blu-ray will tell you, right? But I really enjoyed this. It's very impactful. I knew it was going to be a good movie. It's just not a movie that you really want to be like, you know what? I'm going to start my day with a depressing AIDS drama. That sounds like it's going to, that's going to hit the spot, right? Or then I'll have, some breakfast, go to work. No, it's a movie that you have to be pushed into watching. But Buddies, very good film. And we have the special features, newly scanned 2K from 16mm, camera negative, video interview with co-star David Schneider, and he's one of the leads. And he seems to get very emotional, and for good reason. A video interview with film historian Thomas Waugh, and then trailer, still gallery, reversible cover artwork, English subtitles. Good film, recommended if you're interested in this sort of thing. Short and to the point, and very poignant. Good stuff, Buddies. Well, let's get these questions, comments, and concerns. Fetish Magic. Oh, Mrparka, I love you. Thank you. Glitch Times. Nice video. Taoism Drunkard and side effects may vary. Look like a lot of fun. I have to check them out. Enjoy. Sophie Bongos. I don't usually comment, but I just want to say I discovered you way back around 2010 when I was about 10. You introduced me to so many great horror films. I stopped watching movies in general for quite a few years, and I stopped tuning into your channel and many others. In the last few years, I've gotten heavily back into cinema and recently rediscovered this channel. In the last year, I've looked forward to watching your reviews every week. Thank you for continuing after so many years. Thank you for watching. I'm glad you came back to cinema. That's the one thing in my life that's always remained a constant, is cinema. So I'm glad you watching them. Thank you. Nick Moore from Belgium. Firstly, I hope you had a smashing birthday celebration with cake and balloons, beer and pizza, or wine and roses, whatever strikes your fancy. It was pizza and cookies. There we go. Many, many happy returns, Dave. Thank you. Made for TV horror still doesn't get the respect it justly deserves. Luckily, Amanda Reyes is showing us the way. Her commentary for the original Don't Be Afraid of the Dark is out of this world. Can only hope many TV scary movies get released with a track by Miss Reyes. We'd be so lucky, right? What's your favorite TV horror movie? It's Dark Knight of the Scarecrow. Have you seen both the Salem's Lot miniseries, and so which is your favorite? Only seen the 79, quite enjoy it. Are you excited at all about the new cinematic Salem's Lot adaptation by Gary Delberman? I'll give it a spin. Not super excited. Take it easy. Give my regards to the cats. Bye. Thank you. Elk Vomit, Jackie Chan, Sammo Hung, Yoon Biao, Yoon Hwa, Corey Yoon, Yoon Ki, Yoon Tak, Yoon Tai, and Yoon Mo all came up in the same Chinese opera troupe when they were kids. Also, Cheeky has the greatest opening scene in history. Fire, peach symbol. That's a crazy fucking school, man. That's so much talent in there. Angela150, dear James, smile, thank you. Way up, dude. He gives me a bunch of little like logos and everything. Thank you, appreciate it. And then we have Ken Coakley. For the first time since I started watching your show, I watched a movie you recommended, and I'm glad I did. I watched The Last Circus and really liked it. Pennywise has nothing on this clown. I'm new to the cast and crew, but the actor who played Javier reminded me of Bruno Gans. Good choice. His character was vulnerable and compassionate when it came to protecting the girl. Then he just snaps. The makeup department did a good job with the clown makeup, even though Javier's later makeup was reminiscent of the Penguin makeup in Batman Returns. I agree. They also did a good job covering Javier's wang dang doodle with the dirt. I was jealous of an actor playing Javier getting the chance to run naked through the woods. Who hasn't wanted to do that? He was living the dream. I love the ending without giving anything away. I'll just say it was truly ironic and true. As for Project A, the movie was the first Jackie Chan film I saw theatrically. I had owned a cheap video cassette of Fantasy Mission Force and Master with cracked fingers. I bought those at my local Woolworth. Project A was the first of 6 films at any day Hong Kong cinema. Project A was the first of 6 films at an all-day Hong Kong cinema marathon. Project A was one of 2 Jackie Chan's films in the program. The second one was City Hunter, which had a great scene in the movie theater on a cruise ship. They also showed 2 Stephen Chow films. Those movies were Flirting Scholar and King of Beggars. The rest were Andy Lau film called Savior of the Soul. That's 91, isn't it? And the Chow Yun film Full Contact. When Project A started and I saw English subtitles, the first thing I thought was it's going to be a long day. After a minute or so, I stopped thinking about it and wanted to only watch foreign movies with English subtitles since. After the marathon, I stuck to Hong Kong movies. I saw quite a few Jackie Chan films theatrically at Boston's Museum of Fine Arts. I saw a double feature of Drunken Master 1 and 2. At a tiny theater in Cambridge, Massachusetts, I saw a double feature of Twin Dragons and Wheels on Meals. Wheels on Meals is one I really need to see. A couple of scenes that stuck out to me in Project A were the fight in the bar when Chan and his opponent hid behind the pillar to hide the fact that they were both in pain. That's so funny. It's a great scene. I also liked Chan's bicycle seat fell off and he sat on the pole. I have a question. Will you be reviewing Love on Delivery? You recently got the Blu-ray and I want to know what you thought of it. I may. Also, also a belated happy birthday. You shared the same birthday as Rob Zombie's Halloween star Dag Fouch. Also, I don't know how to say his name, but that's the kid from Halloween, which I just mentioned him sitting there during Love Hurts song playing during the remake. Also, have a great time at Cinema Wasteland. Thank you for commenting. Thank you for the happy birthdays and all that. Yeah, we're going to hop into the update. All right, let's get into this update. Some stuff from the Kino sale. Peril and Distress. It's a 2-film 4K. We have And Soon the Darkness and Sudden Terror, both from 1970. And Soon the Darkness is pretty damn cool, from the director of the Dr. Fives movies, and John Howe, who did Legend of Hell House, if I'm not mistaken, and he did Watcher in the Woods too. Sudden Terror, not a bad thriller kind of movie, but I will tell you, this movie, And Soon the Darkness, is really cool. Then we have Bad Lieutenant from Abel Ferreira, one of his best. Harvey Keitel. Love that tagline: gambler, thief, junkie, killer, cop. I saw this very young. Originally, when I saw this, I probably didn't understand a damn thing, but great movie, written by, what was his writer, St. John, who wrote all his movies, but it's got a good cast in there, great stuff. Harvey Keitel is excellent in it. And we got one from Hamilton Books. We got the 4K of Lucio Fulci's Devil's Honey. Absolutely ridiculous movie. Yeah, saxophone, and that's all I need to say. Good movie, 86. You know, more of a thriller, but some horror aspects as well. It's so fucking bonkers. Brett Halsey, of course. And then we have Lola, which had a good sale on Hamilton Books. Not seen this. Newer film. Supposed to be pretty bizarre and weird, but I grabbed it. Severn Films, of course. Good price on it. Then we have the Sonata, which was a $2 disc. Of course, I had the DVD. I thought this movie is pretty solid. I enjoyed it. Violin kind of horror movie. Been a while. Then we have some more Kino stuff here. We have Death Machine on Blu-ray. Brad Dourif, William Hootkins, of course, from classic stuff like Star Wars and Hardware and Batman. But Stephen Norrington, the guy who did Blade. And I watched this, and I didn't love this originally. But I saw the long cut. Now, this has the 100 US minute cut, the 22-minute foreign cut, and the 106-minute director's cut. So I think I'm going to watch the director's cut next time. I think I'll be very happy with that. I think I watched the 2-hour version, which I thought was way too long. Then we have Back from the Dead here. She Lived to Destroy Peggy Castle. I think a classic kind of gothic horror style thing, which I picked up. Didn't know too much about it, but saw the year, saw the horror aspect. I was like, yep, that's mine. I'm going to grab it. Good sale. Then we have Werewolf of the Werewolf of Washington right here. And I think this is one of these movies that's made solely of, like, you know, stock footage and everything like that, and edited and whatnot. But yeah, I've never seen it. Interested in it. 71 if I'm not mistaken. Oh, director's cut 73. So yeah, Werewolf of Washington. So that's the update. Yeah, I'll pick up some more stuff at Wasteland. Until then. All right, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, have a good one.